What's up, guys? I'm Wayne Gerard, and today we have Raffaele Rispo joining us. Big time Napoli fan, Raff. How are you, man?
I'm good, Wayne. How's it going, my friend?
It's good. Raff and I were just talking on off screen and just mentioning like how much we both love just like being fans and talking about the fan experience. And Raff is also someone who grew up close to me. He's a New York native, something we both share. And of course, a big time Napoli fan. We both love pizza, so we have a lot in common. Um, just off the bat,
Maybe
Ralph,
me a
just
little more than you, though.
well, that's okay. You know, we all have our guilty pleasures, but um, even today, I was thinking, man, I was like, I was literally at work, and I was like, what if I grilled a pizza on the
Oh,
barbecue?
dude, do it,
Just
do it. I've
during the
done it.
middle of the
I've
day, I'm thinking about
do
this.
it. Why not? Right? Why not? It's not the weather's not too cold. You can go outside and take care of that. Yeah, absolutely. So good.
Oh yeah.
So good when you got a pizza on the fire and the grill marks on the dough. It's actually really good.
It is. It's like an
Yeah,
underrated. I did it this past summer at
very.
my sister's. I was like, whoa. Um, I also love Ralph's jersey collection. There are there any players on the back of those kits that you remember?
These are all Maradona.
Uh
These are actually all reproduced Maradona kits from the actual maker, which is Enere, and in collaboration with RB Jerseys, Damien at RB Jerseys. He actually hooked up with Nicola Racuglia, which is the outfitter, the NR outfitter that you probably Roma's had them in the
yeah,
'80s as well, and with the
yeah.
Barilla and all that, a couple of Sampdoria jerseys and Milan jerseys too. Nicola had some of the material left over, some of the original letter stitching and or press. I'm sorry, and they were able to reproduce these kits, and so they're official re-releases. And Yeah, I mean, just beautiful jerseys, and to know that the actual Nicola Racuya had something to do with it made it worth something to me. I always wanted to own one of these Butoni, especially this 87, 88 kit where we, won the Scudetto the year before and were proudly able to wear the Scudetto in Coppa Italia as well. Fun fact, Napoli were only the third team to ever win the double uh, in um, in history. We had
Oh, that's
Juventus
interesting.
do it and Torino do it before them. So this 1986-87 team was only the third team ever to win a double, and then later came Lazio, Juventus again, and then Inter won theirs in
Oh nine, oh nine, 2010.
their
Yeah,
little run. Yeah, yeah. So very cool, very cool.
a good story behind the kit, we could say.
Yes,
It's always the best.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When you get those stories, it's always it means a little bit more.
Yes. And I was lucky this past summer to be in Napoli. It's a city which, honestly, I love. People can talk a lot about Napoli, whether it's crazy, crime, whatever stereotype that there may be. But there's beautiful, truly beautiful parts of that city. And when you are under that sun and you're taking the hydrofoil, maybe to Ischia or
Mhm.
Procida, wherever you
Mhm.
might be going, it's that's to me is like one of the most special feelings in my life. If you can relate to that, Raf.
I can. I can. The last time I went to Naples, they actually experienced record low temperatures and a lot of rain. It was a lot of rain. I went on a February for a February break. It was a long time ago though, Wayne. The last time I was supposed to go to Italy, to Naples specifically, was COVID. I was supposed to go in May. That didn't happen. May 2020. I did have a trip scheduled for April of 2018, when we were really close to winning the Scudetto. Last minute, I had to cancel that for some family stuff. But so prior to that, I haven't been to Naples since 2005, which is a shame, and I've got to get myself back over. So there's a lot of things that I've not experienced in the past, near 20 years now, 17 years. So I've got to get back there. But when we went, I mean, the weather didn't bother me one bit. I was still had the time of my life. We still got to experience everything we would in regular, nice weather. We walked around the city. We ate from the, on the street, food vendors and stuff like that. Um, we saw all
Sfogliatella.
the stuff. Oh yes, Fogliatella, man, nice and
Uh,
hot right in the morning, dude. Oh,
I,
so great.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, it was just a fantastic time. I just had the best of times. You saw a couple of shady, things happening at night, but you keep to yourself and you keep rolling, and you're,
You mind your own business.
you mind your own business. Listen, it happens everywhere, right? It happens everywhere. So there's nothing really to worry about any extra in Naples that you'd have to worry about somewhere else. It just, go have fun, don't think about it, and take in the beauty that is Napoli.
Live your life. Um,
That's it.
and
That's
now,
how they do it. That's how they do it.
taking in life is something I think a lot of Napolitani are doing right now, as Napoli's to the top of the table, not only in Serie A, but also in Group A in the Champions League with 12 points, 3 points ahead of Liverpool. We saw them spank Liverpool. Raff, tell me, what is the
Oh.
secret to Napoli's success this season?
So Wayne, there's a few things to unpack here, right? First and foremost, I think the secret behind the success is um, the the front office, Aurelio De Laurentiis and Cristiano Giuntoli, the sporting director. Their boldness to sell off or not renew, some of their best players. I mean, most of let's face it, the club stalwarts, right? We saw Insigne decide to go to Toronto, and that announcement was made in January of last year. Then we saw, Koulibaly get sold to Chelsea for 40. Mertens decide not to resign after deliberation, for a while. Then Fabian follows suit, and Ospina decides to leave as well. Um, the balls, if you will, that it took for De Laurentiis and Giuntoli to pretty much just hit the reset button, lower the wage bill, kind of reset, restart. We qualify for the Champions League, so there's a little income coming in from that as well, and really just use their resources to replace those players. Um, you know, it paid dividends, as you can tell. We're 14 matches into the season in all competitions, and Napoli haven't lost a match yet. Um, Grouped in a pretty tough, I would say, my feelings on the Champions League group were we could get out of this group, but doable. But I didn't expect to play the way we've been playing. I didn't expect to hammer results out the way we have been. And same thing in the league. There's a lot of matches that we've played so far that last season or seasons prior, we would just not win, whether we lose or, draw and just not be good enough to get the W. And we're doing it. And I think it starts at the top. It starts with ADL and Giuntoli. But then you take a look a little further and you realize that there's Spalletti pulling some of the strings too, right? Luciano Spalletti, and you guys know him very well. He doesn't have a problem being, he doesn't have a problem being a little emotionless when it comes to making the right decisions for the good of the
He's
squad. You
pragmatic.
know, Pragmatic is correct, right? The ability to say, what, we love Mertens, but we have to let him go. He's getting a little older, and I don't think I can use him the way he wants me to use him. The ability to say, what, let's let Insigne go to Toronto. I want to keep Koulibaly, but you know what? Let's sell him too. We can use the money. We can use the replacement. We can use the refresh. And his ability to read that. Also, I feel like he has found his team. He's used the off season well, and he's able to see what he has on the pitch and make a decision that they were going to stick to one formation and go with that. Last season, we saw a lot of um, um, we did not see a lot of production on the wings, and this season we're producing on the wings. We're producing in every facet. So, you know, with all of that to round the answer up comes a new mentality. And I think that that's the biggest thing, Wayne, is that the biggest answer to your question is we have pressed the reset button on how we approach our our game, and we have now created a new mentality. Gone are the days where we're down about a season not going our way. You know, in the past, we've, come so close yet so far. We've had a lot of issues in the back. We've had a lot, in the locker rooms. We've had a lot of issues with, players and management, and those guys are gone. And that might be a little controversial to say, but maybe I think with the moving on from Insigne, Mertens, Koulibaly, Fabian, Ospina, I think we've gained players that are hungrier, that want it more, and that haven't experienced that with this club in saying, you know, man, but if only we didn't lose to Fiorentina in the locker room, or if only we didn't, you know, uh, drop that game against Empoli last season. These guys are hungry and they want it. So the mentality has certainly shifted in our favor. And that's one of the biggest reasons that we're playing so well, and I think that that's what's going to help us move on to the bigger and better things.
Excellent. You make some points there about Spalletti changing the attitude, new players coming in who really change that mindset and who are very hungry, out with the old, in with the new. Spalletti who reinforces that, an ownership who is not afraid to take those risks. And it really makes a lot of sense when Raff puts it like that for us. And Roma, as you mentioned, Roma fans know, of course, how dangerous Spalletti can be. This is a man who has, for a time in 2005-06, revolutionized tactics with the false nine.
Right.
He can invent these things. He's got players who I've never seen Raspadori play like this, just firing on all cylinders. To me, if you asked me last season, I would say Raspadori, I don't want to go on a tangent, but he was the smartest player in the league. But now what you see is like the man is scoring at will, and they're great goals. And I can't
Mm-hmm.
believe that Spalletti is getting that out of him too. Just finding like the absolute right positioning for him to slide into. It's it's a very interesting thing. And when I look at these goal numbers here, the one thing as I was creating this banner, Raff, was how spread out the goal tally is. We see a lot of goals, of course, for Kvara, but even down the line to the end here with your new signing Kim getting 2 goals, even him. Just look at the spread in this. Like Napoli is
Yeah.
firing from every different corner, and
Mm-hmm.
it's got to be recognized by the casual fan, by enemies, for fans who do not like Napoli, literally do not like, maybe like Juventus fans have something against.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, it has to be respected because when I look at it, it's very entertaining to watch, and you can't always have said that about Spalletti teams in the past. Like, yes, they've been really good, but sometimes, like tactically, they've looked shady. But you mentioned something about this being Spalletti finding his team, and I think that's a really important facet to this too. And we look at the quality of the players this year. Kvaratskhelia, like out of the blue, right? And I want to ask you, who has
Mm-hmm.
been your summer signing so far, barring him, because I think
Okay.
that's too much of a softball there. So barring Kvarat, who is your summer signing?
Okay. So aside from Kvaratskhelia, for me, my summer signing was Giovanni Simeone. I'm
Wow.
first of all, I'm that's my opinion. I wanted Simeone on this squad since basically the day I saw him play. First of all, I always thought it was pretty cool that he's Diego Simeone's kid. I always thought maybe what story would what kind of story would it be for not only Giovanni Simeone to come to play for Napoli, but then his father Diego to come coach Napoli. You got the Argentinian factor there. Argentinians definitely love Diego Maradona, so I know all Argentinians have a soft spot for Napoli. They just have to. Um, and yeah, I always kind of like said, oh, maybe if one day Simeone comes to play for us, his dad will come coach us. Um, so that came true this season. And when the rumblings first came about that Simeone was going to join us, and out with Pitania and in with Simeone, but then Raspadori too, like for me, the fact that Napoli has recognized the weakness in their team and addressed it, finally addressed it. And that is in the striker position, in the forward positions. Um, we've always had a pretty good striker in our arsenal. We had Cavani, we sold him off, and that's how we built, Mertens, Callejon, that crew, Jorginho, whatever, right? Then selling Higuain, then selling off Higuain to go ahead and get Milik, who we thought was going to be the next big thing, and didn't quite happen. But we had Mertens. But something would always happen as to where we'd be left with a less than stellar backup system for our forwards. And most recently with Pitania, I mean, as much as I advocated for Pitania a lot and really was rooting for him and actually did recognize that Pitania actually won us a couple games, off the bench, it just wasn't enough to put fear in the hearts of teams. And now the first chance we get to see Osimhen come off with an injury, not only do these guys come in and do well, but they have staked their claim in a possible starting role. Any one of Raspadori, Osimhen, or Simeone could start for this team, and it's dangerous. So I love Simeone. I think him coming in and getting his first goal in the Champions League, in his first 3 minutes of Champions League play ever, the fact that he has the tattoo on his arm, that story that most people might know about. He's got that tattoo on his arm that his mother prohibited him from getting, but he got it anyway at the age of 16 and told him one day I'm going to kiss this tattoo when I score my first goal. For him to do it at the Maradona under the San Paulo renamed Maradona in a blue Napoli kit in the Champions League against Liverpool 3 minutes after coming in. I mean, what better story can you have, to
It's
tell your
nuts.
kids and your grandkids? It's nuts. You imagine calling your dad, who's Diego Simeone, going, "Did you see that? Oh no, you didn't, because you're playing in a game yourself." You know, imagine Diego Simeone coming back and from the high because that match day, Diego Simeone won in like the 99th minute. It was some crazy. I don't know if you remember, but Atletico scored in like the 99th minute to get the win. And coming down from that high to realize that your son just scored his first goal of the Champions League after 3 minutes coming in, like there's not a better story. Like kids live for these moments in their dreams. So in my heart, it's Simeone. But also I have to recognize Kim Min-jae was one of the most important signings we've ever, seen at Napoli. And maybe we'll get into that a little bit later. But for me, it's Kim and it's Simeone for sure.
Sweet. Yeah, Kim. I knew that he was scouted by Tottenham. I didn't know if he was gonna be able to slide in immediately, but that is some decent scouting there by Napoli to go and get their guy. It's not easy shoes to fill Koulibaly, and to settle in so nicely must be a real treat to the Napoli fans. I looked at this Mercato and I said, hey, I think they're going to be pretty good, but I don't think anybody could have predicted the run of form that we're seeing now. And with that, I really wanted to ask you, are Napoli playing differently tactically or formation wise from last season?
Yeah, I feel like they are playing differently. They're last season they were really reliant on a 4-2-3-1, with Fabian in the midfield as a double pivot with Anguissa, sometimes Lobotka. Um, and I don't think they were getting a lot of production from the wings because of this. Oftentimes, Osimhen would be left on his own and left to like maybe drag out to the corner with the ball, like get dragged in by two defenders and be isolated. And there just wasn't a lot of effectiveness from the wings. Insigne had a really poor season when you think about it. As much as I thought he played pretty decently, statistic wise, he wasn't there. And then Lozano and Politano both had really terrible seasons on the right, where Napoli fans were looking to get rid of both of them, if not, one of them, if not both of them for this season. And now they're producing like crazy. And we all know what Kvaratskhelia is doing on the left. But I think moving to a 4-3-3 really helped that out. When we got Fabian out of there and realized that we can play with a three-man midfield with um, using Lobotka properly as a regista, then having Anguissa in that, pretty much that Alan role from the Saudi days, the holding midfielder who's going to get balls back, win them, you know, help distribute up to the front, stay defensive but move forward if he has to, and then Zielinski, adding some help to the offense, not leaving Osimhen all by himself. The 4-3-3 is really working out for us this season. So much so that with Raspadori coming in, we always, we thought, okay, he's more of a seconda striker, right? Like a second striker behind the main striker, or like somebody that can play out to the left. He's also a left, minded player, but we have Kvaratskhelia for that. But what we're thinking is like, you take Osimhen out, you put Raspadori in, you put Simeone in, Raspadori can play. Now you shift to a 4-2-3-1 where we know we can play because we're familiar with it last season. Instead, we're playing a 4-3-3 throughout. Like we're using Raspadori as a false nine, and he's playing a lot like Mertens now. We're
Yes.
using Simeone in the 4-3-3, right, as a striker in the 4-3-3 as the number 9, and it's paying off dividends. And Osimhen hasn't skipped a beat, So I think the 4-3-3 is always going to be Napoli's best way to play. Um, Trying that 4-2-3-1 just didn't work out, and Spalletti, I think, knew that with the change in personnel, he can now make this team adapt to that situation, adapt to that formation, and run with it. And yeah, so for me, it's it's much more aesthetic too, pleasing to the eye, the 4-3-3, and that's the difference between this season and last season.
Has there been, or what was the way do you think that Spalletti chose to cope with losing Koulibaly? Because you can't really just replace him. So how do you work around that?
Well, and it's funny, Wayne, because you've given me these questions beforehand, and I my son and I, my two boys, we're nuts about Napoli, obviously, right? But my kids are very smart when it comes to this. So I asked my older son Rocco, like I said, listen, I had trouble answering this question, and I said, Rocco, answer this question for me, and I'll tell you what he said. He
Yes.
said, emotionally, it it's very difficult to cope with Koulibaly leaving. He said emotionally, no, right? Like it's hard to lose Koulibaly, but
Yeah.
on the field of play, on the pitch, it's like we haven't skipped a beat. I mean, at first. At first, Kim came in and, he had to, we all thought, okay, new league. He's coming from the Turkish league. He's South Korean. He's a young kid. He's got to integrate himself into the league. Koulibaly needed a few seasons himself to become to where the status that he is now, and that the legend that he was at Napoli. But Kim is really looking like 5 years in Koulibaly right now, and that's scary. And that's
That's
scary. It's
crazy.
it's scary because Kvaratskhelia player of the month in August. September's player of the month was Kim, and here were two guys that we barely pronounced their name, and at first, and we were like, what are we thinking?
Who
Like,
are
what are
they?
we doing? Who are these people? Right? And they're legitimately Serie A's chosen player of August and September. It's unbelievable. Um, man, Koulibaly was just more than a player. He was more than a player. He was a leader, in my opinion. He was a leader on the pitch. He was a leader in the locker room. He was an ambassador of the club to fans. He was just, and still is. He still speaks nothing but highly for Napoli. And losing a guy like him really stung. And I think I'm still a little emotional about it because he was a fan favorite in this house too. But I mean, how can you be so 2 months into the season? How can you really sit there and say, "Man, I wish Koulibaly was still here"?
Yeah,
Because we're still producing defensively, and we're winning like we're winning games. The best medicine for all of this emotional stuff, the Mertens and the Insignes and the Koulibalys, is to win, and we're doing it. So we'll always miss Koulibaly. I always will regret not being able to see him win a Scudetto. I always envisioned him becoming. I thought he'd be the captain of the season. I thought
yeah.
Insigne leaving that he would replace Insigne with the captaincy and lift a trophy like the Scudetto with Napoli. We didn't get to see it, but you know what? He deserves his big payday.
He
And
does.
he deserves the recognition that he's getting now. And it's sad to see that he can only get it after leaving, you know, to go to
It
the
is
EPL.
quite bittersweet in the season where Napoli looks most likely, and I don't mean on points total. Well, partially points total, but just if you take the way that Napoli is playing, it's the season they are most likely to win silverware. Yet the three guys who in the past 4 years, 5 years, helped Napoli become what they are, Insigne, Mertens, and Koulibaly, are not there, and to me that's like that's a bitter one for them,
It
I
is a
think.
bitter one. Yeah. Mm.
Eh,
Yeah.
but
You're right. I couldn't envision a team without that. Like, I said it. I said it everywhere I went. Like one or two of them, okay. All of them, like no, there's no way we're gonna sell off all of them at the same time in the same window, and then get away with. Listen, ADL was public enemy number one
he
when
had
this all
guts.
went down, and
You got to have
now
guts to do that.
he guts, and now he's looking like a complete genius, and
Yeah,
it's
ADL the genius.
seriously,
Words
seriously,
that I have never heard, that I
un-
too often haven't heard in my life.
it's unbelievable. It really is.
Now, if you are ADL and you employ Mr. Spalletti and you are now giving the tactics and you're eyeing up your opponent, it's this
Mm.
Roma, it's this Giallorossi, they're unpredictable. Some days they look great, some days they play against Udinese and they barely have any attempts. Other days they play great against Atalanta, but they lose. Sometimes they play not so good against Inter and they win. What do you make of them? And who is Roma's most dangerous player? Who is the guy that you're man marking?
Gosh, I mean, this is a trick question, man, because I gotta say, and listen, I watch as much Serie A as I possibly can. I'm a diehard fan of the league. Napoli first and foremost, obviously, but there's nothing else on our TVs at work or on my TV at home than Serie A, Coppa Italia. I watched all the games today. Um, Roma are so hard to figure out, and I have a really good client friend of mine who's a massive Roma fan, and we talk all the time about like what it is. What it is that the thing is that Mourinho knows how to play really ugly and win and get some results. The problem is that they're not. they're also getting some really bad results. So that Udinese result, I mean, listen, when Udinese beat Roma 4-0, I don't think anybody saw Udinese like contending for first place, 1 point behind Napoli for a few weeks there. You know what I mean? Um, but my gosh, Roma, they're still there. They're still only 4 points off the mark, I think, right? Um, um,
4 points out of
hang,
first.
4 points out of first, man, and that's without Dybala. That's without Wijnaldum. He lost Wijnaldum. Um, that's without Tammy Abraham producing. That's without without goals. I mean, you're not scoring a lot of goals, but you're getting the job done. So
It's
that's
not pretty.
worrying. No, it's not pretty. It's not pretty. But you know what? Who cares if you're lifting a silverware, right? Like, I mean, let's just say Roma bounce back. Let's just say Roma bounce back and win something this season, whether it's a Scudetto, Coppa Italia, or something in Europe, and they do it ugly all season, but it gets done. Who cares, right? As long as it
Nobody.
gets done. When the results come in, that's all that matters. See, they won ugly yesterday too, right? Against Sampdoria, 1-0 on a penalty kick, right? So that always kind of worries me. A Mourinho team against a Spalletti team always kind of worries me. It's in the Olimpico, a hostile environment already. It's going to be a really tight affair. I think this will probably be one of, if not, the hardest match Napoli have had to play so far. Um, we'll have a returning Anguissa. He'll be back. But no Rahmani. We have to either do Juan Jesus or Ostigard in the middle. Um, I do have faith in Kim though to mark the attack there. But I think even though he hasn't really come off yet and hit the ground running, I would say I'm afraid of Tammy Abraham because he could score a goal. You know what I mean? He could score himself a goal. And you always have to worry about that. You always have to worry about that. Even though Pellegrini's playing really, really good football. I love Pellegrini. Um Dybala before his injury too. You know what I mean? Like just one of the best players on Roma. Um so luckily for us, Dybala's out, but I think still that Roma have a deep enough squad, a good enough squad to compete with Napoli. I feel like sometimes Roma gets up for these big games. You know what I mean?
So you would
So,
say, regardless of form, Tabby Abraham, just because he's not putting them in right now, that there's not really a way to
listen,
truly stop him if he wants
it
it.
don't right. It only takes one. He gets that one to build his confidence. He gets that big goal, and that's another thing. Napoli tend to give up goals against players that are supposed to get you the goals. Like Giroud for Milan, he scores against Napoli. It's just the way it is. You know, um, I somehow I just feel like we need to watch him. The midfield has to do their job and contain Roma's midfield. I'm not very concerned with that. I think Napoli's midfield is one of the best midfields in Europe. Never mind Italy. What I'm concerned with is Tammy being able to get past either Juan Jesus or Ostigard, whoever we decide to start. And there be a lapse in concentration in the defense, and Tammy gets himself a goal. So that's who I'm worried about right there.
This, I really think this one can come down to the cracks in between the center backs and the wing backs. If
Mm-hmm.
Napoli can exploit those, they could win 2-3-0. But if Roma hangs on and they shore that those positions up and fill in the gaps there, they could really frustrate Napoli. I want to say, Raff. And if they hit on the counter and Abraham gets that big goal, like you're talking about right now, then Napoli is in hot water. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, I think this is going to go either way. I don't see this being like a 1-1 game. I think this is either going 2-3-0 Napoli or 1-0 Roma.
That's an interesting viewpoint. I'll say I mean, listen, I'm gonna pick Napoli to win, obviously. I think that Napoli have the ability to crack the Roma defense, especially Kvaratskhelia. Like, I don't think there's I don't think there's a player that can stop him right now. He hasn't been figured out yet. I mean, did you see? If you have time, if you didn't see it, please go look.
He's so good.
Roma fans, I urge you to go look at Napoli Bologna highlights and just watch every single ball, every single chance that Napoli had, even the non-goals, were all because of Kvaratskhelia. Look at his passing. Look at his ability to split two defenders that are coming to like the one the one Zielinski he hit the crossbar when it was 3-2. It was like maybe 10 minutes left in the match, right? Just the pass that Kvara pulled off against these two oncoming Bologna defenders that were sort of like closing in on him, and he just poked it right through him. And the ball to Politano, he missed. This was in the first half, but he missed in front of net and stored it over the bar. But the ball, just look at the ball, just look at it. It's just, and I catching some hot water from Patrick Kendrick by saying this, but I called Kvaratskhelia the second coming of Maradona, especially in that Bologna game. In that Bologna game, he looked just like Maradona playing. And it's something to see. It really is. So if he can get past that defense, which I'm confident he will, and Osimhen is lighting it up, it's gonna be a goal fest. But I do think Roma get a goal. So I'll go with a 3-1 Napoli.
3-1. 3-1
3-1
Napoli.
Napoli. Tammy's gonna get his goal, and maybe even 3-2. Tammy might get two.
Okay.
Um,
3 goals at the
but
Olympic goal.
at some point, Tammy is gonna jump off here, and he's gonna get stuff done, man. It's got to happen.
It does. Seems like one of those things that's inevitable. If he gets through this patch now, and he figures out how to really play in Italy, as he did last season, if he reminds himself how to play in Italy, I should say, then this Roma has gotten very far. I think, as we mentioned about 10 minutes ago, while its big players besides Dybala have not really come to play, and that has to say something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe he needs Marco Messina to go back over there to toss him into the pond or something.
Yeah, something like that.
He needs something, though. He does.
We'll see what happens. This one is going to be a thriller. Raff, thank you for joining me. You can, guys, if you can, check out Rafa's Twitter. I had it right here. What did I do with it? Sorry. It's right there. Follow Raffa-Napoli 83. I should have mentioned if I didn't. I think I did it first. He's the host of the Far From Vesuvius podcast. Great stuff with another Raff, if I'm not incorrect.
Raff
actually,
and Raff. Right. It's the show that I host is the Napoli Rant. So that's on Twitter as well, at Napoli Rant. It's on the Far From Vesuvius network. We've done a little bit of shuffling there. Far From Vesuvius is now a network of podcasts. We have a bunch of shows on there. It's a lot of fun. But my show is the Napoli Rant. It's live every Monday around 8:30, 9 o'clock. We vary with start times, but you'll find us on a Monday night for sure. That's Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. You can download the podcast after that to the Far From Vesuvius podcast network. And I have so much fun doing it. Wayne, like we were talking about off air, man, we're a bunch of fans doing what we love to do. And, that's what drives us to do it. And I've met so many great people doing all of this, you included. You've been on our show, and we'll have you again for sure. But thanks for letting me come on here and talk to you guys. I know there's been a lot of animosity between Napoli Roma fans over the past few years. I must say, I am not one of those fans that hate Roma. I actually kind of admire Roma. And like I said, I've got some friends that are Roma fans too. So I love talking the league and Roma and Mourinho and the excitement. I was very happy for the Conference League win last season. A lot of Napoli fans were, crapping all over it, saying that it's a Serie B trophy. Well, guess what? It's not. It's a European trophy, and your team didn't win one. So go cry.
Raff, thanks so much. Guys,
You're
give
welcome,
it a
my
like,
friend.
all that good stuff. Subscribe. Go check out Raff's channel too. Throw him a subscribe. We'll be back. I'll be doing a preview tomorrow, everybody. That'll be up as well. And, going to try to put out content every day leading to this match, Mourinho's comments, all of that. Spalletti, I'm sure there'll be some back and forth, right, Raff, between Spalletti and Mourinho.
Oh, you have to. I mean, that's value in itself. We can have a 0-0, but we'll have a Spalletti, Mourinho showdown, and everybody will be entertained still, right?
Love it. All right. Thanks, guys. Ciao.